It does not get much bigger than this. The Georgia Bulldogs at the Alabama Crimson Tide, SEC juggernauts, likely playing again? Question mark. We'll see.
I don't know.
You can say
It's going to be
that about
interesting.
multiple teams on Georgia's schedule.
Basically, then, yeah, the entirety of their schedule, or at least four. This is the first one.
That's Brent Rollins. I'm Dayne Young. We do Film Don't Lie from UGAsports.com, and we are brought to you by ASW Distillery, Oconee Gold Barbecue Sauce, and Breda Pest Management. The first thing we must acknowledge, Brent, and it's obvious, Nick Saban ain't at Alabama anymore. He will
No.
be there for college game day, and I'm
Yeah.
sure he'll have his little suite on the field named after him now. This is a different Alabama team.
Yeah, and you got Kalen DeBoer coming in and bringing his offense, and Nick Sheridan now as offensive coordinator. And I think when we look specifically at Alabama's offense, and we're going to look at the defense in the next day or two, it's the most diverse from a scheme, formation standpoint that I've ever seen from Alabama's offense. They don't have, it's not like the Tua RPO days. They don't have that element to their game because it's just not what Milroe is from a decision-making standpoint. But just from a formational, go spread, then we go tight, two tight ends, four wides, like anything that you can think of, screen, deep, QB run game, all of it. They rarely, from a formation and play standpoint, ran the same thing twice over the first three games. It's actually, from somebody who just appreciates offense and diversity of scheme, it was semi-fun to watch because it's, in terms of tells, very minimal tendencies over the first three games from them.
Okay, so a lot of Georgia fans watching this, in terms, and we're about to bring up a lot of video, we have a ton of it. What do you think that means Georgia fans can expect if there is so much diversity?
I do think that some elements of, all right, they bring more tight ends in, they're going to run the football and try to go downhill more. But the other thing is just this is such a Jaylen Milroe-centric offense now. He leads them in rushing attempts. I mean, he drives and just the usage rate in general for me, looking at him and how much, when you add the run game element to it, if he survives this run of the SEC this year in the SEC and no injuries with the amount of carries that he's getting per game, like he's going to get up into the Cam Newton 2010 territory in terms of just usage. Because I think I looked, Newton maybe had like 230 carries that year. Like Milroe's Milroe's over 150 in terms of on pay, or if you depends on how many games he plays, but it's a lot. They don't run as many plays as that Auburn team did, but he is their guy, and they use him as the decoy / element of everything, and we're going to show that in all the plays that we got because we got 22 of them.
Quickly just mention some of the skill players around Milroe because it is a different cast. A lot of the guys that were in the SEC championship transferred out. Some went pro. And so Jaylen Milroe is the most dynamic ball carrier on this team. He may be the most dynamic ball carrier in the country as a quarterback and as a
I would agree with that.
And then other running backs on the team, Jim Miller, Justice Haynes. Georgia knows Haynes very well through the recruiting process, and his father playing at Georgia. Those are the two guys. Both have been pretty good this year. I mean, so far, Jim Miller, 9 yards a carry. Justice Haynes, you round it up. He gets to 9 yards a carry, 3 and 2 touchdowns, respectively, each for them. And then you start to get receivers. I mean, you're going to hear this a billion times between now and the end of the game. Ryan Williams is 17 years old.
Yeah.
10 catches, 285 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's really good.
I think that's the other thing, watching them and noting them. And obviously, when you look at them over the first three games, they've played Western Kentucky, South Florida, and Wisconsin, who's not very good at all. Especially offensively. What can you glean from that? Well, they don't have a Bond or a Burton who just gets open, and Bond is terrorizing opponents for Texas now. Those two guys aren't there. Williams is definitely their guy. He's 10 receptions for 285 and 4 touchdowns. But a couple of those were just busted coverage. One of them we're going to see.
Yep.
But he's still kind of their go-to. But it's not like he's the freak show, at least physically, that Jeremiah Smith is as a true freshman at Ohio State. He's more speed, Ridley, to me, Calvin Ridley-esque. But, very good player. And if they want to take a shot, he's their guy.
Bernard and Prentice, probably the other two to watch out for at receiver for Alabama. This is going to be very Jaylen Milroe centric. So we'll just start here. We're showing clips from the 3 games played so far this season. Not as much reason to look back at the SEC championship. Different coaches, different scheme, a lot of different personnel. But Milroe is back, and we start here early, first game of the season against Western Kentucky.
I think two things with this. One, the first 2 games, their offensive line was in shambles. And they were playing guys that didn't necessarily need to. They didn't look like SEC caliber players. And the other part is you're going to see a constant theme for me, and it's way more spread out. And it's one of those where if you're a youth football coach, and there's a lot of people probably who have coached youth football, and look at it's like, okay, when they have the most dynamic athlete on the field, do you want them all in tight and you can kind of condense the space, or do you want everybody spread out and now that person has more room? What scares you is when they're spread out. But the other thing with him is his average time to throw has greatly improved. And I think Kirby talked about this today in his press conference. He is massively better as a passer and a rhythm passer and an on-time passer. But there's still situations where he's going to hold on to it longer, and because he wants to hit the ball down the field. And here, loose with the ball as well. He's got 3 fumbles, I think.
Yeah, that is a fumble. Was recovered later in that quarter.
Like I said, spread out, and then you're going to run pull and lead power with him, 6'2", 225 coming downhill. That's scary. And it's one where they formationally can, with the size that they have along the offensive line, some of the movement, you see a little bit more movement from their offensive line, more guard tackle counter, more pull lead, things like that. But this is just, it hasn't worked consistently, but it's one where you just give him so much space and avenues to choose, and he's going to find holes, and he's going to accelerate and do things as a runner.
Well, and just red zone threat.
Oh yeah,
I mean that's one thing.
I think we got a couple others at least that he'll show that. When you think about his rushing statistics and this doesn't account for sacks. The box score stuff has the sacks in it, but 32 rushes, 183 yards, 6 touchdowns. So not massive in terms of yards or per carry, but he had one against South Florida, like a 75-yard or something called back. So like he's had a lot of big runs that have been caught, and one I think in this that we're going to show, but he's as explosive as it comes.
2nd and 8 here have an RPO.
And this is, I think, something South Florida got him, Western Kentucky got him a little bit, but when his eyes and things are designed to kind of look one way, and you're bringing in either backer or a lot of times DB from the backside. South Florida did this a couple times, especially when he's in the pistol and he turns his back. They do things like that. But also look at what they're actually wanting to do here. This is the tackle. This is faking the bubble, and then the tackle pulling around and leading and running power with their 6'2", 225-pound quarterback. They spread you out and use him. Now, not much here, but it's still something you got to think about.
Just a note on the offensive line attrition and injuries that Alabama's had, because a lot of the issues that they had specifically against South Florida, I think, were because of this.
Because of the guy right there, 75.
The backup
right
tackle.
Yes.
Does not look like anyone that has played at Alabama in 10 years, frankly, to me. And I'm not throwing shade on him. It was just kind of jarring to see.
Yeah.
And, when healthy, Alabama's first unit, I think, is still really, really good.
And they got that in against Wisconsin. Proctor's back. Booker goes inside. Pritchett there. Like, they got kind of what they want more so when they got to Wisconsin.
Well, I say
and he
that
wasn't
to
pressured
say,
as much.
I say that to say if one offensive lineman gets hurt for Alabama in this game against Georgia, it wildly swings an advantage to Georgia, especially if some of the defensive linemen for Georgia are back. But even if they aren't,
yes, I agree.
But I mean, put Jalen Walker over there. Let's say you had that, if it was Proctor going out again or something, like Jalen Walker can feast on that. But if it's first team Alabama offensive line, I think it's very formidable.
Yeah, and I think Jalen Walker can feast on any of their offensive linemen just on the edge, just because like he did it to Latham, who was a first-round pick last year.
It's a really good point.
But again, spread, like you just see, spread out. Now, this is one area to me where he is much better, like infinitely better this season, and that is playing as a passer under pressure. We're navigating with his eyes up and checking, like this is a check down touchdown. Now, granted, tackling's not good in this Western Kentucky, but it's still him navigating space and not navigating space to run. It's navigating space to throw. I think we see it later at some point too, another clip. Like, look at his passing grade under pressure last year, 39.4, one of the worst in the Power 4, Power 5, whatever. But this year up to 62.8, which, in terms of passing grade numbers, that's not the greatest, but against pressure, that's actually up there. Anything over 60 against pressure is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, I actually thought he tucked this like he was about to run it, but he does keep his head up to look,
Yep.
and then
Makes a play.
he knows where the line of scrimmage is, doesn't cross it, and
Yep.
that's so dangerous to do, right? Because I just don't think there are many quarterbacks in college football that can do any of this, and so it's hard to practice against too.
And this is standard rush 4, kind of cover 2 look, 2 safeties deep. And his ability to be free kind of makes a play. This is the other part that I talked about, the spread you out stuff. And this is what will be fascinating to me in this game, is how much they do this versus how much they say, okay, we want to bring in 2 tight ends and just go downhill, much like they did in the SEC championship game. But look what they're doing. They're using this is power read. The guard is pulling around. I don't think he's really truly reading anything here. It's just more of a give, though the end does crash and it's a give read. But it's the threat of him and Miller has, you talked about him, I think you said 9 yards a carry. Yep. Like, a lot of his stuff is mainly because Milroe is occupying eyes and causing hesitation, and he's taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a version of Milroe that I think DeBoer and his staff have unlocked that maybe we didn't see as much, especially early last year. And I almost wonder, Brent, is when you spread this out, because he is such a dynamic runner, has that made him more confident and comfortable in the passing game, or is that just his growth as a quarterback? Because we're going to see some really good.
It's a combination of both, would be my guess. And by the way, I don't think you'll see as much of things like this, just because my guess is they're going to think that maybe Georgia's defensive backs are more physical and they can't, and you got to go different ways and you got to run more split zone, like we're going to show later. But it's still something that they've shown. Like I said, they've shown a little bit of everything.
You will see things like this. Definitely will see this.
And this is one where, think about what Western Kentucky did here. They said, okay, it's 1st and 20, and they brought 5 with a spy, and the spy takes one little step to the wrong way. So boom, they bring 5, and the guy's sitting in the middle, and then he takes one step to the wrong way, and Milroe's out the other side and making big plays. Now, granted, it got called back, I think, because of holding, but still, his ability to navigate space, he stays in the pocket, eyes down, like he's gotten better, a lot better, even in these first 3 games. As opposed, now again, opponents, it's a different animal when everything is really crashing down on you if you get true pressure. And South Florida did that, but that was almost a game where, like, they couldn't really block much of anyone.
Alabama 7 penalties against Western Kentucky, 13 penalties for 120 yards against South Florida. So maybe not quite the level of discipline there, but you didn't see as much of that against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think the next one is like after they take that back, get another first down, and then we see the next one. Pause it before the snap. Go back to the snap. What does this remind you of when you see this formation?
I mean, we've seen this at Georgia for sure,
but also at Tennessee. Like, this is Heupel's.
I guess Georgia's is not spread out, but I'm saying the 2x2. I've seen it.
Yes. But this is Heupel running, hey, I'm going to spread my wide receivers out far just to run the ball and run guard, tackle, counter. They've mixed this in with tempo. So, like I said, it's just the diversity and a little bit of everything. And this is Haynes taking it, I think 85 to the house.
Yeah.
So when you look at just what they're doing, it's pulling from a lot of different offenses to blend with this great running threat that you have at QB.
Anything, and I don't know how much you watched of Washington last year. Anything that you've seen that they did,
not like this,
or in the
completely
playoffs?
Different. Penix was
different personnel, right?
Yeah, Penix was not a runner, and they didn't use him as a runner. Well, I mean, he could have been, I think, but they just didn't use him that way. And it was because they had such elite receivers. It was, and by the way, the OC is now with the Seahawks, I think. So the Sheridan was, I think he was the tight ends coach, maybe. Yeah. But it was a downfield passing game. It was a completely different animal from what they're seeing here. Right now, South Florida.
This game was a struggle. This was a struggle for a while for Alabama.
And they brought it. And they said, I don't care. And we're going to show some plays where it's like they truly didn't care the situation. They were bringing people. They blitzed him on 45% of his dropbacks. He was 5 of 12 for 67 yards. Now, what's interesting is I think there's this perception that Georgia sat back a little too much against Milroe. They still blitzed him on 48% of his dropbacks last year in the SEC championship game. But it even wasn't enough then. Michigan did it upwards of 60%. And I think just especially when it's money down, third down, South Florida brought the heat. Now, obviously, it got away at the end after the coach decided to kick a ridiculously idiotic field goal instead of trying to win the game. But I think the football gods said, all right, we're going to give you some big plays. But after that, but still, they brought heat, and they forced him to do some things he didn't want to do.
Wasn't a turnover? Could have been a turnover.
Yeah. Look here, 3rd and 6. This is man across the board. And this is the other thing that you still see with him, and that's Williams who draws the goes deep, draws. He is still not afraid to throw the deep ball on any play. 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 2. Like, it doesn't matter unless it's a true run for him. If he has the ability to throw the ball and it's a pass play, he can and will look to throw the ball deep. So you're going to have to play, I guess, penalty-free football and be clean as you can. But look at still what they're doing. They're press man. We're bringing safety deep, not hiding behind anything. Now, like we said, pressure and the blocking in this game, they dropped a little spot in the middle for the mesh concept, but drawing the penalty, taking deep shots, they're going to take deep shots anytime.
I'm glad you pointed that out about the deep shots, because it's obvious that Georgia has not faced a quarterback this season that can do what Milroe does running the ball. In terms of deep ball, Georgia also has not faced a quarterback that can do what Milroe does.
No. And I mean, he's one of the better deep ball throwers in all of college football. This is the concept to me that if you just look at sort of and by the way, because Kentucky had success with this, Kentucky had success running this split zone concept where one of the H-backs, I think, goes right, back comes left, and this just ends up being a TD because the backers have to, and how they defend this, and we're going to look at some of the different things with this, is your backers in 21, look at 21, what he does, following the tight end. You can't be this. Boom, gets caught in the mix. Backers get caught in the mix. And as much as Milroe scares you as when he might pull it and run, things like that, and we're going to show some of those plays, it's the playing of the front side and not paying so much attention to 4 that you get beat right downhill like this. Where Kentucky, like I said, Kentucky got a couple of these, and you'd see some chase downs you didn't necessarily get there in time, and they got through that little bit of crack. So defensive line play is going to be big for Georgia at the point of attack and not allowing creases. But this concept, you're going to see it consistently.
Well, one of the things we saw, too, when we did our Film Don't Lie reviewing Georgia-Kentucky, let's say, Dan Jackson would come around the line of scrimmage and ended up being against a tackle for Kentucky, and it was just a mismatch. And that would obviously still be a mismatch against Alabama. So what does Georgia do in that chess match to say, okay, do we need to get someone a little bit bigger, a little more physical? Do we need to change personnel? Do you put Aguero on a different side of the field for a certain look?
There's going to be a lot of personnel matching in this game defensively.
Yeah.
Especially with them in the 2 tight end looks that they show. This is youth football 101 right here. I have the best athlete on the field. I'm going to snap it to him and let him run.
Yeah.
Student body right.
I think I could call this play.
I mean, it's one where you just let him go be an athlete.
How many quarterbacks in the country score on this?
It's not many. It's not many because of the cut, the speed, and the power, like all that he has. He is the most dangerous runner at the position.
The Vandy guy that came from New Mexico State. He's got that gamer in him, but he's not like this.
Not this type of athlete. But that's just, you see it. We saw it empty. Look at this red zone. We saw it against Western Kentucky. Red zone here, a little bit different formation. Power, pull, get out in front, just snap it and go. Pick up the extra blocker. It's hard to stop.
You'd like to think that Georgia has better tackling, better angles, better athletes to stop this.
Very much so.
But we also saw in the SEC championship game, Georgia miss a lot of tackles on this guy.
Yep. Very true.
So Georgia's not immune to that when it's just such top-notch athleticism. Here's a third and 28.
By the way, this is the, if I'm USF didn't give a rip. This is 3rd and 28. They are pressed up. They are playing man. I think they end up with one safety back, and they bring it on 3rd and 28 and get the sack. And that's just goes to show you that the mentality they played with in this game that I think Georgia should bring to this game. And also, you kind of saw the strategy. And we're going to point out how some different strategies have worked against Alabama. But to me, when in doubt, you're bringing pressure against this guy.
Jalen Walker, if Michael Williams is healthy, Gabe Harris, C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson,
all those guys.
Get them on the train. You said bring the house.
What's the Engage 8 is the Madden.
Yeah. Malachi Starks, you got a lot of work. I mean, he can blitz too, but a lot of work to do on the back end as well to cover for some of these guys. 3rd and 5 now.
Yep, and this is, again, showing sort of playmaking skills that he's evolved and handling pressure and handling it to throw. So instant win, left tackle gets beat, steps up, eyes up, finds a guy. Like I said, that element of his game. I mean, he made a couple plays in the SEC championship game. The flip to Bond is the one that was like a backbreaker that I remember. But for the most part, he's struggled with this. Getting a lot better.
Hey, one thing I noticed on this play too, you start out with protection here from, I think this is Haynes in here at running back, but I guess when you bail from that to become a check down on this side, or maybe just had no one to block, I don't know, but that spacing didn't seem right to me. There seems to be some kinks they're still learning this together. And there's a lot of young players on this offense. Milroe is the veteran here, and people kind of haven't learned how to play around him a little bit.
Yeah, especially when he can really go anywhere is the thing.
Yeah. 3rd and 6, third quarter.
By the way, look at the safety at the snap. Look at the other 10 players and then the safety.
Yeah.
We're bringing it from somewhere. We're playing man. One guy's sitting as the spy. 24, by the way. 24 right here who gets this sack, I think, is a ball player for South Florida. Absolute ball player.
You think he'll be in the portal?
Massive.
Get some NIL?
He's older, so he might be drafted type. But just very good ball. Undersized. Later round draft pick. But to me, this is the dynamic with Milroe. And this is my comp for him. And I'm trying to speak some positivity into the Braves, so I'm going to make a baseball reference. He is Kyle Schwarber. The 3 true outcomes in baseball: strikeout, walk, home run. This is him. You might get the deep bomb. You might get the 50-yard touchdown run. You might get the walk. That's or those are home runs. You might get the walk. That's the 10-yard first down carry. But you're also going to get a lot of strikeouts, inaccurate throws, some inefficiencies, taking a big sack because he wants to make a play. And that to me is the perfect comp for him. But yeah,
they
still brought it.
Notice the score here, 4th quarter, up by a point. So I understand the way this final score was in this game. If you didn't watch it, you would think, Alabama handled South Florida. No. Alabama really struggled in this game and was in danger, I would say, of losing up until close to about this time.
South Florida gave up when their coach gave up. This is the part. So we're going to look at a couple different things of how they're going to play this. So pause this. a little bit, go back just a little bit. Watch the left defensive end for South Florida. See him squeeze as the tackle blocks down. Yeah, right there. He squeezes down. And this is kind of what I'm taught oftentimes. Block down, okay, I got to squeeze. Because you want to give the back a cutback lane. Well, if you squeeze, fine. He pulls. If your backers are not in place, he's too fast for them. You have to have, and I think this is where the biggest difference in Georgia playing this game this year versus the SEC championship game is the experience of Munden being back healthy and then the experience of Raylan Wilson and CJ Allen. That to me where you're going to see less of these type of mistakes, but you also still saw Kentucky do a lot of the same things. And this is that split zone action where he pulls it, now he's got a blocker, and by the way, sometimes that's a throw. It's just hard to defend. It's really hard to defend. So this is play. Now watch the next play. We get to Wisconsin. So pause it right here. Look a little before, right at the mesh point. Pause at the mesh point. Same sort of thing. This is more true inside zone without the split zone look. But look at the end and the backside backer for Wisconsin, almost in unison, sitting together, waiting for Milroe. Right here. Look at them. Right there. And then the guy right behind him. They're just sitting there only looking at 4. And look what it does. That's an easy 10. 11 yards. I mean, he doesn't get touched it gives angles galore for your line. He doesn't get touched till 8 yards, 9 yards. That's the dilemma with him. And it's difficult. You have to play massively great assignment football.
He's such a different kind of player that it breaks so many of the things that we know to be true just about protections and scheme and offense. He can just do things that, I mean, Lamar Jackson does this in the NFL, right?
Exactly. It's the threat of it. When you're the best athlete on the field, the threat of you just taking it and running it because you don't have to throw it, it's a real threat. And they use it, especially like this, short yardage. Like, look at that. That's 3rd and 1. And they're playing him that way. Now, this one to me, talking about spread it out to run the split zone concept, this is just good offense. And now you got a tight end lead.
And he was never touched. Never touched.
You don't, and that's the problem. The problem is you're already spread out, and now they run this with a lead block and pick up an extra guy. Even if the guy runs up the field, he gives that sometimes. But that's the dilemma with this offense and how they've run the split zone concept. Where we've shown the H-back tight end coming across. They've run it out of at least 8 different formations, I think. Like variations of 2 tight ends. They've run it here, spread, motion. They run it traditional wing. They've run it out of empty, not necessarily empty, but out of double H-back, like a little bit of everything. So it's always a possibility with them in the running game.
And look, Wisconsin's not a great team, and the personnel not competitive with Alabama. I still think Fickle's a great coach. A fantastic coach. Knows what to do in most situations. Alabama had them running in circles.
Well, what's interesting is I saw Aaron's comment there, so we're going to lose. No, I don't know that I'm there yet. It's just that what Alabama's done offensively and the diversity that they've shown, you just have to be very disciplined football. And obviously, you think Georgia's just now preparing for Alabama and looking at tape as it relates to new offense. But I get you.
One small thing here: put the ball in the other arm, Milroe.
He also trucked a DB like he was nothing.
I suppose you're not scared about that if you can be trucking the DBs.
All right, so pause this at the snap. We got a setup situation here. Think if you're Wisconsin. You've played them tough and gotten them off the field a little bit in the first half. There are 36 seconds left in the half. And Alabama's about to score in 2 plays. I tweeted this earlier today. They have 21 touchdown drives. 14 of those touchdown drives, 4 plays or less.
Quick.
You have to make them work the ball down the field. Now, this one, by the way, this one's even more amazing. I'll pause it here in just a sec. That's 2 Ryan Williams at the bottom of the screen. I don't think this is – I mean, it may be by design, but I don't think. because I think they wanted to get maybe like a quick first down. But as you would go through and run this, right when he stops, right there, boom, he stopped completely. And then restarts and gets down the field for this big play. Like I said, he may have been setting that up, and that was the play that they called. But
So
he kind of
what you're
completely
saying
stops,
is
brings the corner up.
He stopped somewhere around right here. The corner bit on it, and then he went to go again, and Milroe found him there. It did seem like some backyard ball.
But like I said, whether it was by design or not, that's him looking down the field, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're at the 25-yard line. But boom, he sits, and then Miller's just hanging, and then he starts going down the field. Boom, sees him, huge play.
The main thing I wanted to point out about Milroe on this, but look how quick he gets rid of this when it's time to throw it. It is not a long release. He doesn't waste time, and now sometimes he's in the pocket a little too long. Sometimes he is very patient, and he gets hit here. But when it's time to throw the ball, it's out of there. And I'm not saying it's Carson Beck quick, but it's not far. No,
he's greatly improved as a passer. Now, pressure, different coverage, tight windows, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Different said. Now, the interesting thing is, all right, so you do that, and you're like, okay, crap. Well, this is the next play. He's just like, okay, I'm going to put one on a dot.
I mean, perfect.
In the corner.
Absolutely
touchdown
perfect.
To Bernard, the kid that transferred, who's his third school in 3 years, transferred from Washington. So when we talked about the home runs, the Schwarber comp, he's 7 of 14, 50%, 302 yards and 5 TDs on throws over 20 yards. Like, you have to defend it. Like, look at the first play I think it was the first play of the game in the SEC championship game. They took a massive deep shot. They're going to test you down the field, unlike Georgia's been tested down the field.
I mean, you can't do that any better. Wisconsin could defend it better.
So this is one where, again, the element of him, but also look how the formation, back a little bit to the this is double tights. 2 tight end with the other tight ends on the line of scrimmage. This guy's off. And Wisconsin decides to sort of try to beat inside there, and and for some reason the linebacker here is walking outside for some reason, shuffling outside. And like, look at the hole. Like, that's Dayne, you're getting like 5 right there, I think. Maybe
thanks,
at least 4.
Thanks, man. Back in my tennis days when I played, multiple times a week, I'm probably getting the first down.
So if they catch you in any way, like in that read there, that's tough.
I do like Jaylen Milroe as a runner, especially north and south.
I
get that that's runner. A big lane there, but north and south, he can get some of those dirty yards. Probably more of a dynamic runner to me is Haynes, but Jam's a good player.
Yes, and he gets it the most. I think they, in terms of carries, I think he's got like about 10 more than Haynes. So he's their guy. He's already.
But as you say, fewer than Milroe.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go empty.
So this is the rush 3 tactic. 3rd and 4, still kind of hanging around 28-10, and he sits, and he tries to play make, and then you're there. I think you're going to see Georgia do a little bit of both. You're going to see where it's like, okay, I'm bringing it this time, or this time I'm playing coverage. I'm playing 3-5-3 basically.
Well, I mean, the first question that we get on UGA Sports Live, do you put a spy on Milroe? Hell yeah, you do.
If you're doing this, you definitely do.
Yeah.
But in general, yes. And there's
certain times. And then the next question is, who is it? And CJ Allen seems like a pretty good candidate for that.
It's any of them. It's anybody but Ingram Dawkins. It's anybody but it's somebody that's got some level of speed.
Yeah, you don't want it to be an interior.
It's Walker.
Lineman.
It's Damon Wilson potentially. Like,
we did see some Georgia interior linemen drop back and spy in a previous version of Georgia versus Alabama. This is multiple years ago. Don't need to see that.
SEC
again.
championship when Bryce Young.
Yep.
Last play that we got though, This is tough.
There's not much you can do about that.
If I'm an offensive coordinator, I want to steal this. I'm going to fake this inside zone, and then my running back becomes my lead blocker to the tight end side, away from the trips, into the short side of the field. You're 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, that's going to create amazing numbers for you. And if you get any sort of block at the point of attack, that's just you're not getting. And the running back makes the block.
I mean, that's a first down guarantee, right? If the block is made,
or if you don't get any sort of penetration, that's just tough to defend. That's so tough to defend.
Yeah.
And like I said, so I looked and went back and looked at all his design running plays, 26 different design rushes. They ran the same play / scheme in the same formation on 3 of those 26. So it's power read out of twins. It's power read away from the trips. It's split zone, double wing. Like it's everything. They've shown everything. So it's a matter of what they want to choose to do and what they want to attack Georgia with that you're going to see. But they've shown a little bit of everything in the QB run game.
This was a bit of a love fest for Milroe and what his potential is as a runner. And again, I think he is the most dynamic ball carrier in the country. So I'm saying that. But at the same time, Brent, after watching Alabama play in these 3 games, areas that you see that Georgia can exploit in this game,
I think
for Bama's offense,
interior rush. I think their side now. Granted, with them having their offensive line sort of back in a normal sense, but I still think they can get interior push. I also, like I said, I don't see a Burton or a Bond, and even the Williams kid, he's made great plays. But it's not like he's consistently creating this. I'm a route runner and I create 5 yards of space every time I go run routes. Like he's been covered well and he's gotten some big plays on busted coverages. But I think you might see them challenge them a little more so in that realm from the defensive back standpoint. And have Malachi go be the best player in your defense in the game. KJ Bolden, welcome to the big show. I think their secondary is going to play well, barring any sort of like coverage bust, things like that I don't think we really typically see from Georgia. So that's the thing for me. It's also just it's much like Kentucky, and I think that's the key to this game is the 3rd down and 3 or the 3rd and 6 that you give up a Milroe run, or that 3rd and 3 and they run the split zone and you just slightly miss a tackle and they get it and they stay on the field. If you can get them off the field like that, I think you're going to be in a lot better shape. Force them to be a true drop back team, because if the running game is still involved for them, still a part of what they can do, which it has been in every game for them for the most part. That's
The one thing
folks
to
trying to forget the Kentucky game.
The thing I think you can glean from the last time that Georgia played Alabama, scheme and everything different, whatever. Alabama's offensive line was more physical in that game, especially compared to when they played against Auburn the week before, if you remember.
Yeah.
The first unit of Alabama's offensive line is capable of something like that. Again, I think if there is any injury, attrition, we've seen Milroe take some hits this year. And you talk about the number of carries that he's already had. Georgia has to go into Tuscaloosa and immediately set the tone that they're going to make life hard for Alabama physically. Yeah. And that's going to start with Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. That's going to start with Jalen Walker. If Alabama can get rolling a little bit and have some
especially north-south,
yes, then it can get away from Georgia and then put a lot of pressure on Georgia's offense to get in a track meet. I don't necessarily see that happening. Georgia's defense hasn't given up a touchdown yet this year. It's going to give up a touchdown in this game. It's going to happen.
And historically, you think when these matchups for the most part live in the 20s, and sometimes against 21, the SEC championship game, it got up there because of one crazy quarter.
Yeah.
2018, it got up there a little bit just because the game was an odd game, but. Like for the most part, I think you're going to see this game almost first 1 to 20 kind of becomes your victor in a way, but it's also mistakes. And by the way, if Georgia can't run the ball at all, now that's. But we'll look at the defense here in the next day or two.
I'll wrap this with a bit of trivia, although I probably texted this to you, so you may have the answers already. Kirby Smart's record with more than a week to prepare. So I'm including
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
first games of a season, bye weeks, and then bowl season
Yeah.
and college football
Playoff
playoff.
types.
Not SEC championship. You only get the normal preparation for that.
Right. What's that like? 20? Was it 20-2, 21-2,
20,
or something?
26-2.
26-2. I saw.
Yeah.
I knew it was the 2. I didn't
Okay.
remember that.
All right. In Kirby Smart's tenure at Georgia, how many home conference losses just how many home losses does Alabama have? Not conference. How many home losses does Alabama have since Kirby Smart started at Georgia in 2016?
2019 LSU is a definitive one that I remember.
That's one.
Since Kirby Smart was there.
I'll give you the answer.
not in
It's
20,
one more.
not-
It's 2.
Yeah.
And it's last year, Texas.
Oh yeah, Texas last year. That's right.
And so this is
And by the
more
way,
for
both of those games, QBs
yes.
were the utter key.
And if you go back to 15 when Kirby Smart was there and Ole Miss got Hugh Freeze a job for the next 10 years, Chad Kelly also similar thing. Chad Kelly in 15, 0 interceptions and a win against Alabama. Joe Burrow in 19, 0 interceptions, a win against Alabama. Last year, Quinn Ewers, a win over Alabama, 0 interceptions. Got to protect the ball, and you got to be aggressive still. That's
Yep.
going to be the challenge for Georgia, and that's what we'll talk about of what Carson Beck and Georgia's offense has to do against Alabama's defense with another Film Don't Lie later in the week. We're presented by Breda Pest Management and the official pest control of the Georgia Bulldogs, Oconee Gold Barbecue Sauce, and ASW Distillery. They are distilled by dogs. 5 and 6 founders are UGA grads, and that hunker bourbon is getting out there. It needs to be at your tailgate, whether that's at home or at Georgia games. Maybe you're making the trek to Tuscaloosa and you want a little bit of extra spirits with you. Find Hunker Bourbon along the way. It's making its way out in the state of Georgia. Every time Hunker Bourbon is purchased, a bit of that goes toward Georgia NIL purchases. Purchases? That's what I'm going with. Hey, This has been Film Don't Lie from UGA Sports.
Big games are fun.
Big games are fun, and we're going to have a lot of these for Georgia this year based on that schedule. So we'll have a lot of scouting reports again. We'll look at Alabama's defense, mainly personnel, but maybe some scheme things that we check out as well.
Yeah, it's different. It's definitely different.
There's your tease. Thanks for watching, everybody.